I need you to listen carefully, because what I'm about to reveal could explain everything that's happening in your life, including things you haven't even grasped yet. There are strange signs that precede prosperity, and almost no one talks about them. But those who understand these signs don't panic. They take a stand. And before I continue, subscribe now to the Keys of Prosperity channel, because here you'll always receive messages that strengthen your faith and expand your ability to prosper with clarity and purpose. And tell me in the comments, what city and country are you watching from? Have you ever felt like doors suddenly started closing without explanation? As if everything that once flowed naturally now seems to stall for no apparent reason. This is the first sign. It's not bad luck. It's not rejection. It's redirection. The door that closes now is often God's protection against a path that wouldn't make sense at your next level. But human eyes interpret it as loss, while spiritual eyes see it as alignment. I experienced this before I prospered, and now I finally understand. It's strange, because in those moments you don't see the new arriving. You just feel the old slipping through your fingers. People change, invitations end, opportunities evaporate. And your heart even tries to say, "What did I do wrong?" But often, you didn't make a mistake. You simply outgrew the environment that sustained you thus far. And when you grow, some structures can no longer accommodate you. It's uncomfortable, but necessary. Closure isn't the end. It's a silent preparation for a greater beginning. And that's exactly where many people give up. Because no one warns them that before prospering, God allows certain things to fall apart. Not to shame you, but to free you. What's happening isn't punishment. It's an internal upgrade, like gold being refined in the fire to shine brighter. But in the middle of the process, the feeling is one of loss, confusion, and injustice. The world reads it as collapse, but heaven writes it as transition. You begin to leave the survival phase and enter the construction phase. But why don't most people see this? Because they've been trained to interpret pain as punishment, not realignment. Humans fear what they don't understand. But those who are aware of the process can navigate this valley with dignity. I understand your feelings, because I've cried over doors I asked to reopen. And today, I'm grateful they closed. And perhaps soon, you'll say exactly the same. Because the door that closes today will give way to the door that changes your story. And here I want to make something clear. This sign isn't comfortable. It's disconcerting. It shakes your sense of control. It shakes conversations, structures, routines. But every time a door closes, something inside you also reorganizes. Because true prosperity begins long before it hits your bank account. It begins the moment God rearranges your environments, deconstructs your patterns, and forces you to notice what you would never see if everything remained the same. Prosperity begins in the invisible. Before we move on to the next sign, I want to remind you, prosperity isn't about luck. It's about preparation. It's about a mindset trained to endure what heaven has yet to deliver. So, if you want to start reprogramming your mind for abundance in a guided and intentional way, check out Reprogram a Mind, a 7-day program with daily audios that train your mind to thrive with clarity, faith, and inner freedom. The link is in the pinned comment. But don't leave now. The next sign will impact you even more. The second sign that almost no one associates with prosperity, but which is inevitable, is the sudden distancing of some people. And contrary to what many think, this isn't always accompanied by fights, arguments, or betrayals. Sometimes it simply cools down. The conversation no longer flows. The connection that once felt natural now feels forced. This happens because, as your consciousness expands, your energy changes, and not everyone can remain where your mind is beginning to dwell. It's precisely at this point that many ask themselves, did I do something wrong? And the answer is almost always, no. What changes isn't love, it's frequency compatibility. When you start thinking differently, dreaming bigger, and seeing more clearly, some people can't keep up, and that's okay. Thriving isn't about abruptly ending relationships, but about understanding that some cycles end naturally when your mindset no longer fits into small spaces. Because the truth is that the soul naturally seeks what nourishes it. When you awaken to a new level, your soul is no longer satisfied with toxic conversations, with repetitive complaints, with relationships that drain more than they add. You begin to physically feel when a presence is stealing your energy. It's not arrogance, it's discernment. You begin to protect your peace like you protect your own breath. And this, in itself, filters environments and people. But this distancing doesn't always come from your movement. Sometimes, it's the other side that pulls away from you. And this can hurt more, because it feels like rejection, but it's actually protection. When your mind aligns with growth, those who choose to remain stagnant often feel uncomfortable, not with you, but with what you awaken. Your progress exposes the stagnation the other avoided facing, and so, some distance themselves not because you've changed, but because you force them to face what they don't want to change. And this is where many people fail. They try to maintain relationships that no longer have the structure to sustain the next level, and they force themselves to keep explaining, diminishing dreams, extinguishing spark, just to avoid losing people. But prosperity requires courage to lovingly release what has already served its purpose. Because healthy relationships propel us, those that drain us paralyze us. And if you insist on remaining where God has already withdrawn his peace, you freeze the movement that heaven intended to accelerate. I had to learn this through tears, because I tried to hold on tightly to what simply needed to be honored and released. And when I finally understood, an inexplicable peace filled my heart. There are people who are part of your story, but not your destiny. And releasing this isn't contempt, it's wisdom. You honor the past by not hindering the future. And prosperity begins precisely there, when you understand that love also expresses itself in discernment of permanence. If the first phase of prosperity closes doors, the second strengthens connections. And this is the most delicate transition, because it affects deep emotional bonds. But breathe. What's meant to stay will be strengthened. What's moving away was only passing through. In the next chapter, I'll show you the third sign, and it's perhaps the most difficult to interpret correctly, because it manifests as heaviness, but is actually expansion. The third sign arrives disconcertingly. Out of nowhere, life seems to get heavier. More bills, more responsibilities, more unexpected events, as if everything decided to happen at once. You ask yourself, why now? But what most don't understand is that this increased pressure isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's as if the heavens are testing the vessel's capacity before pouring out something greater. Because prosperity requires structure, and structure only arises under pressure. When God expands your territory, he first tests your ability to manage what you already have. That's why weight doesn't increase when you're weak. It increases when you're almost ready. It's the same principle as bodybuilding. Weight only doubles when the body is strong enough to support it. But the human mind tries to interpret as chaos what, spiritually, is simply growth. It's not an attack. It's a leveling up to the next level. I clearly remember the first time I felt this. It was as if everything became more demanding. Work, family, responsibilities, urgent decisions. My first thought was, I'm being attacked. But then I understood. I was being trained. Because what you can't handle, God doesn't release. And while many despair at the increasing pressure, few discern that hidden within lies the transition to a new authority. This is the exact moment when many backtrack. Because they asked for prosperity, but weren't emotionally ready for the responsibility that comes before it. Biblical prosperity was never just about receiving, it was always about stewardship. And this requires maturity, discipline, and patience. Before multiplying, God stabilizes. Before releasing abundance, God strengthens the foundations. And because of this, everything seems more intense, but it's just a weight reduction exercise before the ascent. If you feel like the demands have increased, before you consider giving up, consider, what if this isn't an attack, but a promotion in progress? What if everything you're experiencing now is actually direct training? Because God would never increase your influence if you didn't demonstrate faithfulness and balance in the little things. The weight is always proportional to the purpose. And if the weight is increasing, perhaps it's because your next phase requires more capacity than the current one. This external signal, when not understood, generates fatigue and frustration. But when understood spiritually, it generates alignment and trust. You stop fighting the process and start moving with it, because you understand that everything is being honed with purpose, including your resilience. Prosperity without emotional strength becomes ruin. But prosperity sustained by maturity becomes a legacy, and that's when something surprising begins to happen, and almost no one notices. Your heart begins to become more sensitive, not weak, sensitive, as if God were training you to feel more, perceive more, discern more deeply. This is the fourth sign, and perhaps the most subtle of all. If you want, I can reveal it to you now. The fourth sign arrives silently, and only those who are attentive notice it. Your heart begins to become more sensitive, not weakened, but expanded. Things you previously ignored begin to impact you differently. Conversations gain new depth. You begin to discern intentions more clearly, even when no one has said anything. It's as if God opens more refined channels within you, heightening your perception of the environment, people, and even yourself. It's uncomfortable, but it's extraordinary, because it's a sign that your inner leadership is being activated. This kind of sensitivity isn't emotionalism, it's maturity. You don't cry over anything. You feel what you need to feel. You feel it faster. You detect energy, weight, atmosphere. Even before anyone speaks, you know whether something nourishes or drains your soul. It's as if God is allowing you to see from a different perspective, not from appearance, but from essence. And believe me, this is one of the greatest treasures of true prosperity, spiritual clarity before physical movement. The world sees this sensitivity as weakness, but spiritually, it's a weapon, because it forces you to make decisions in advance. You avoid dangerous alliances before they even show their true colors. You sense something is wrong, even without proof, and then discover you were right. This sensitivity is protection. It's a divine filter. It's as if heaven is saying, I need you to see it first, so you don't suffer later. And that's exactly why this sign often leaves you confused at first, because it seems like you're more emotional, when in fact you're more expanded. Your compassion grows, your empathy blossoms, your intercession deepens. You begin to perceive pain hidden between the lines. And more than that, you begin to feel responsibility for things that previously didn't even catch your attention. This is emotional leadership being activated, and biblical prosperity always begins there. This sensitivity also makes you realize where you still need alignment, not just externally, but internally. You begin to see behaviors, beliefs, fears that were previously dormant, and instead of running away from them, you feel an almost spiritual impulse to address these areas. God doesn't just want to prosper you, He wants to transform you first. Because giving abundance to a misaligned heart is like filling a cracked vase. It doesn't last. This sign is, in fact, the perfect bridge to something that changes everything: organization. Because when the heart awakens, consciousness awakens with it. Suddenly, something inside you begins to reject clutter, financial, emotional, spiritual, and you feel a natural urge for order, not for aesthetic reasons, but for preparation. Because prosperity doesn't arise in chaos. And those who have felt this urge already know it's near. And that's what we're going to talk about now. The fifth and final sign before the manifestation of prosperity. The one that definitively separates those who are ready from those who will need to wait a little longer. If you'd like, I can show you exactly how it manifests. Now close your eyes for a few moments, and don't just listen, declare with me. Because prosperity doesn't begin with money, it begins with the voice you choose to release within yourself. I want you to repeat this firmly, like a spiritual decree. Not just thinking it, speaking it. With authority, with conviction, with the certainty that heaven moves when you take a stand. Take a deep breath, and let's prophesy over your own story now. Repeat after me in a firm voice. I was not created to survive, I was created to thrive. Say it louder. Scarcity no longer rules my mind. Now declare, I honor money as a tool, never as an idol. Feel your posture shift. Continue. I steward wisely all that God places in my hands. Once more, I attract opportunities aligned with purpose, not desperation. Allow this to take shape within you. Now let's go deeper. Declare, I don't chase money. Money finds me in order, excellence, and faith. Repeat, I am the answer. I am the provision. I am the channel, not just the recipient. Say decisively, I don't ask for crumbs. I access promises. Visualize doors opening as you say, I am ready to be trusted with much. And once again, with authority. I don't live in scarcity. I am called to multiply. Feel the atmosphere shift within you, because your mind is responding to what your mouth is releasing. Now declare, I renounce all patterns of fear and scarcity inherited from the past. Once again, I do not repeat stories of limitation. I inaugurate cycles of abundance. Say, my mind opens to prosperous ideas, creative solutions, and divine strategies. And conclude this block by saying, I am mentally and spiritually prepared to receive what I have asked for. Now just feel the environment realigning. Because every time you decree an agreement with the heavens, something moves in the invisible. And that's why this practice can't be done just once. Repetition builds power. If you felt something awaken here, imagine living 7 days straight, with daily audios guiding you to completely reprogram your financial, emotional, and spiritual mindset. That's exactly what you'll find inside Reprogram Mind. A 7-day program with strategic statements, guided step by step, to transform your mind into a fertile environment for real prosperity. The link is in the pinned comment. And if your spirit senses this is for you, don't delay. Because the mind you feed today is the life you'll reap tomorrow. And now, breathe. Because next I'm going to reveal something almost no one understands. How Solomon, Paul, and even Jesus taught invisible financial principles that only work when the heart is aligned with purpose. There comes a point in the journey where prosperity ceases to be theory and begins to require structure. And it is at this point that the Bible reveals 3 masters who walk different paths but point to the same destination. Solomon teaches us about strategic planning, Paul about emotional positioning, and Jesus about purposeful multiplication. These are not isolated messages. They are parts of the same spiritual map. And when these 3 pillars align within you, heaven understands it can release more. Solomon makes it clear that prosperity isn't improvised, it's engineered. In Proverbs 21:5 he states, well-laid plans lead to abundance. He didn't say prayer, he said planning. He didn't say haste, he said elaboration. Because heaven doesn't deliver abundance to those who are still putting out fires. Prosperity requires foresight, awareness, and organization. God doesn't multiply what's left unattended. God multiplies what is strategically positioned to grow. Paul, on the other hand, reminds us that money is not an end in itself. It's a mirror. In Philippians 4:12 he says, I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. This means that prosperity begins before there is money in the account. Because those who are not emotionally healed turn abundance into a burden. Paul teaches us that balance and gratitude do not come after wealth. They are prerequisites for receiving it with dignity. Heaven does not give resources to restless hearts. And then comes Jesus, who not only talks about money, but demonstrates the principle. When he tells the parable of the talents, he teaches that those who have multiply, those who fear, paralyze. The servant who hid out of fear lost everything, but those who multiplied received more. Jesus doesn't reward those who preserve. He rewards those who expand. Prosperity isn't about keeping safe. It's about expanding territory. Heaven only invests where there is courage and responsibility. Notice the pattern. Solomon talks about process. Paul talks about internal state. Jesus talks about movement. This means that prosperity isn't luck, it's alignment. You plant like Solomon, stand firm like Paul, and move forward like Jesus. And when these three codes meet within a single person, they become unstoppable. Because prosperity isn't just about what you have. It's about who you're becoming to sustain what's to come. Now, do you understand why the path seems so difficult before the financial breakthrough? Because God isn't just preparing your bank account. He's preparing your heart, your mind, your discipline, your attitude. Prosperity is a spiritual responsibility. And that's precisely why there's a fifth and final sign. One that leaves no doubt. One that confirms you're ready. And it's about to be revealed. If you felt something align within you today, if this chapter made old pieces finally connect, then get ready. And now we come to the fifth sign. The one that confirms, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that prosperity is at hand. It's neither mystical nor symbolic. It's practical. God begins to call you to organize everything you previously tolerated in disarray. Finances, schedule, environment, routine, emotions. Nothing can remain on automatic mode. Something inside you awakens and says, I can no longer live improvised. Because God doesn't bless chaos. God blesses order. You begin to feel uncomfortable with what once seemed normal. You open the drawer and feel the need to put everything in its place. You look at your account and understand that you need to know where every penny is going. You realize that your conversations, your time, and your energy need to be protected. This isn't anxiety, it's alignment. Heaven only releases provision for those who demonstrate the ability to responsibly manage what they already have. This movement is subtle but irresistible. You don't organize to receive, you organize because you're already ready. Because your mind has finally understood that prosperity isn't an event, it's management. God doesn't send multiplication to those who haven't yet established direction. And it's precisely at this point that many people stop, and few move forward. Because this is the moment your faith begins to become visible in your actions. And that's why I want to extend an invitation to you now. If everything I've said resonates with you, if at any point along the way you felt, this is me, then take a public stand. Not for me, but for you. Write the word Amen in the comments now. This word isn't just approval. It's spiritual agreement. It's an act of faith. It's a declaration that you will never return to the previous phase. And if you haven't already, press the subscribe button right now here on the Keys of Prosperity channel. Because here, you'll never walk alone again. Every day, I'll be with you, strengthening your mind, elevating your faith, and preparing you to manifest everything God has already written for your story. Press it now. Because this content isn't motivation, it's training for a new level. And here I want to remind you, the moment you write Amen, something changes spiritually, because you stop being a spectator and become an active participant in what God is doing. This comment is a milestone, a spiritual signature. Declare it. and allow heaven to witness it. Because when you say amen, you say, I agree, I accept, I advance. And heaven responds to what you declare in faith. You've made it this far, and that already reveals something powerful about you. Because few remain until the end of a word like that. And those who remain are those God is preparing to experience what many only desire. So remember this truth. Prosperity doesn't begin outside. It begins within. It manifests when your mind, your choices, and your heart are in position, even before the money arrives. And today, something has already changed within you. From this point on, nothing will be the same again. Because once the mind awakens, it never goes back to sleep. You will no longer be able to tolerate what once accommodated you. You will no longer accept patterns of scarcity, disorder, and survival. Because now you've seen what you couldn't see before. And a mind that expands doesn't return to the same size. This is the beginning of your true transition, and I'm honored to be a part of this moment. If you felt this word as confirmation, not just inspiration, then know this. This was just the beginning. The journey to prosperity is ongoing. And if you want to experience this renewal not just as reflection, but as a transformative daily experience, then take the next step with Reprogram a Mind. It's a 7-day guided audio program that activates a prosperous mindset and definitively frees you from scarcity. The link is in the pinned comment. And please, never forget this. You're not late. You're in preparation. The process wasn't a delay. It was a structure. Because God doesn't improvise miracles. He builds bridges. And you've just stepped onto the first one. Now it's time for constancy. 1 step a day. And the harvest will be inevitable. Because heaven honors those who remain, not those who merely visit the destination. I conclude this message with infinite gratitude for your presence, your dedication, and your trust. May each word planted here today blossom in perfect timing, and may your life become a living testimony of the abundance that comes from God, clean, free, balanced, legitimate, and permanent. See you in the next video. Infinite gratitude.